Hello.
Hello.
Tell me, you've probably heard of IBJJF black and brown belt nogi.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think everyone kind of considered nogi worlds as subpar worlds. It was like fake worlds almost. Like, if you don't have heel hooks and all of the leg locks legal in a nogi competition, I mean, it's cliche to say at this point, but you are ignoring 50% of the body, right? That's how it works. So it needed to happen. I'm glad they made the decision to do it. I mean, it's the mark of a great organization if they can adapt. And adaptation was needed, and they added it. And I think this will bring in a lot of athletes from the submission-only scene and from like ADCC scene who maybe don't compete in this, because you need to have heel hooks. Otherwise, you have guys competing in nogi how they would in the gi. And that was one of the biggest problems. And it forced people to play the point system more than to attack, because you can't sweep nogi from bottom as effectively as maybe you could 10 years ago. The game has evolved, the meta has changed, and from the bottom you have to be able to attack leg locks. So I think it's a great positive change. I think it's going to bring a lot of notoriety to nogi worlds. I think nogi worlds is going to mean a lot more, and it's going to warrant more nogi specific training. So for all of the IBJJF athletes who train nogi 2 to 3 months out of the year, you're going to see them having to have their seasons, like 6 months gi, 6 months nogi, if not like commit to one or the other, because that's the direction we're moving in as the two sports divide. It's very difficult to be the best at both of them. I think we're going to see more specialization on both sides and sort of a divide there. And I think
do you think this will help bring it back?
No, I don't.
Divide.
I think it'll become further divided. I think for people to have success in one or the other, you're going to have to specialize. The techniques required are vastly different. The styles of training are vastly different. The attack system is vastly different. The way you score is vastly different. And to think that you can just hold both those styles in your brain and expect to be the best at both, maybe you have the brain capacity to do it, but you don't have the time to build the skill and the instincts. So it really comes down to time, and who is going to put in more time on the mats. The advantage will always be to those who commit to one or the other. And there may be an outlier or two. Maybe Felipe Pena can manage both, but I think over time that even that will catch up to guys like Felipe Pena as the specialization becomes more focused.
So what about the effect on the jiu-jitsu? Because every time a new position or technique is introduced, there's a kind of a constant evolution. How do you think that the introduction of the leg locks and the reaping will change the no-gi game in the IBJJF format?
Well, they'll have to adjust some rules, because I think, for instance, the double guard pull rule is going to be a little different with heel hooks involved, because they won't be able to count 20 seconds and then do the double penalty and stand them up. They'll have to allow leg lock battles to continue. I mean, I suppose as long as you're attacking the feet, but sometimes it doesn't happen like that. So I think there's probably going to be a year or two of ironing out the discrepancies between the rule sets as you introduce heel hooks into them. But then over time, I'm sure they'll figure it out. The IBJJF historically makes good decisions. Like when reaping was becoming a big problem, everyone was getting DQ'd. They did change it. It didn't apply to me usually, but they did change it in the rules to where if you reap, you're supposed to just take their foot out and give a penalty. A lot of people didn't respect that rule, unfortunately, but I think that's just like the stutter step of refs growing accustomed to new rule sets. But yeah, I think that's the only issue. I think the point system is still valid with heel hooks involved, because heel hooks kind of represent a submission attack. It's not, you don't really sweep with heel hooks very much. If you're heel hooking, you're usually staying on bottom to get that torque and leverage. So I think a lot of the leg lock only guys will still be very effective in an IBJJF tournament now, where previously maybe they weren't. You couldn't only attack leg locks. And the guys who wanted to avoid leg lock could play the point system to avoid that. But now it's very risky to try and only stall out to avoid heel hooks. It's not going to work, I don't think. Maybe other leg locks you could do that, but with heel hooks, they work from anywhere, regardless of how much you stay on your knees or how much you try and back away. They'll get the stalling points. So I think it's great, and I hope we see more of the Danaher guys come to IBJJF tournaments more regularly now. I think that's an awesome integration of the two. I think for too long they had kind of been on their island over there, but I think maybe that'll create some crossover as well, and I think it'll be a positive thing for the sport overall.